Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Art House. I wanted to do a video reflecting back on the Kickstarter. As I engage across the community, I find that it's a reminder that there's a very diverse and mixed audience out there. There's a lot of us that have been very active in a Discord for the past year. We're very close to the history of the game. We kind of know a lot about what has transpired over the year, almost a year now since the Kickstarter campaign had run. But more and more people have been turned on to the game and learning about it for the first time. And I'm finding that a lot of people don't know that history, don't really know what it was like through the Kickstarter campaign, and kind of even like some of the basics of some of the partner relationships that the company has, and some of the catalysts that gave it such a successful Kickstarter debut and has generated and built a lot of excitement. And we're still learning about things like distribution. It's interesting, even some like major stores didn't realize the Rudy partnership. So I'm going to talk about that in a moment and how that influenced the Kickstarter. But I just thought it'd be kind of interesting to kind of recap. So I'm going to show some data and some statistics here of how the Kickstarter campaign unfolded. And if you go to, I want to say if you go to the Kickstarter page or the backer kit page, I forget, they have these two plots here, right? And then I went through and I kind of pulled out the data points and I plotted it up in this table on the left. So that's what's generating the information. And then from that, I was able to derive the average spend per backer for each day of the Kickstarter campaign. So I'll kind of walk through that a little bit, talk about some of the dynamics of like how that played out and what some of the catalysts were. All right, so the Kickstarter campaign, this ran from March 15th, 2022 to April 4th. 2022, right? So it's a 20-day campaign. And right out of the gate, the first data point here, daily funding is the first plot we're looking at the top. And there was a huge spike right out of the gate, $1.2 million. And I forget off the cuff if this was in USD or New Zealand dollars. But regardless, with currency exchange, it's in the ballpark, let's just call it 1.2 million. All right, so there's a big spike right out of the gate, and then things kind of steadied a little bit, I'll say. It dipped to 127 over the course of the next few days, 127K, 88,000, 71,000. So it started kind of like trailing off a bit, right? First 3 days, although that's still pretty profoundly successful to have on the order of $100,000+ per day, and then even stabilizing in the 80, 70 price range, right? But then on day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on March 19th, Rudy from Elf Investments, and if you don't know who that is, it's a major YouTube influencer. And he has about, I want to say 350,000, maybe 320 something. So 300,000+ subscribers, very large audience from Magic the Gathering and other TCGs, right? So he came out with a video and he announced that he was doing kind of like a partnership with Eric Curiosa, the creator of Sorcery Contested Realm. And it's not like an equity-based partnership. He doesn't have ownership of the company, but I guess he's providing some kind of consultation, and he's going to be one of their distribution partners, so to speak. He sells product a lot for Magic, other games like Flesh and Blood and MetaZoo, and he's going to be carrying the Sorcery product and offering an exclusive promo, presumably with each of the releases or perhaps the beta release, and then going forward, right? So on that day, March 19th, I kind of circled the box to show like what the impact of having a major YouTube influencer had on the campaign. So you saw this big spike, right? We were at $71,000 raised the day before, and then on the day of that announcement, we jumped to $805,000. And in that video, he also announced the Frank Frazetta licensing deal. So that the confluence of those two events caused an enormous swell of buzz and excitement around the game, right? So there's that big spike. And then over the subsequent days, still pretty high volume, about 500,000 the next day, 270, 150, 160. And then it kind of stabilized in this price point. It only dipped as low as $78,000 out here around March 25th. And then, still was pretty steady and stable. And it did about, let's take a look. If I average out the remainder of the campaign, you're looking at 220,000 a day. So very substantial. There actually is an outlier data point as it spiked on the last day. So if I exclude that, you get still $175,000 per day. So massively successful Kickstarter. There's a lot of buzz and excitement around the game. Throughout the 20 days, a lot of steady investment. Looking at the number of backers per day, that averaged out to, 288 pledges per day. And again, if you take out the outlier data points of the first and last, you have even still about 240 people per day buying into the supporting the Kickstarter, right, and the alpha product. So very successful. The next data point and the lowest plot here is the average spend per day. So interestingly, you see this was pretty steady throughout the campaign. I drew this red dotted line across the middle to kind of show where the averages lay out on each of these. So even with the Rudy effect, so to speak, on March 19th, there wasn't like a massive spike in the average spend per backer that day. That's always been roughly stable around this $858 price point. And that's kind of interesting. I mapped out the products at the bottom here. Let me zoom a bit so it's a little more legible. And, so some of the key pledge tiers, right? This kind of outlines what the cost of products were. You had the Elementalist, which was the pre-constructed decks, which is kind of like learn to play type decks. And those were $50, right? To get a set of those 4 pre-constructed decks. So you had the Apprentice tier that was 1 booster box, $130. There was an early bird where you could get it for $120. That was only limited to 250 backers. The Sorcerer was a whole case of cards, which has 6 boxes. That was $750. And an early bird for the Sorcerer, limited to 100 backers. They also got 1 sample pack. And we've come to find out that those sample packs are highly desirable, very valuable, very rare. They're doing very well on the secondary market, right? And then you had the Innkeeper, Collector, and Avatar, where the Innkeeper is your retailer pledge, and they had kind of like a package of various items, promotional materials, 4 cases, 24 promo cards, things like that. And then your Collector and your Avatar were your high-end pledge tiers, $2,500, $9,500, included original art, a few cases, uncut sheets, a lot of premium products, right? So when you look at the $858 spend per backer, that averages out, I'm going to call it to like roughly a case, which is $750, right? So on average, most people are getting 1 case, and of course there's some extremes on both ends. Some will get just a few boxes, others get several cases potentially. I think technically there was a $10,000 spend limit. So I know some people just filled up to 10 grand with cases. Some people leverage multiple accounts. It's kind of easy, not easy, but I guess easy enough to kind of manipulate the system with multiple accounts and spend more if you really want to. So some people ended up with like a couple of the Collector tier pledges to get a couple pieces of artwork and other products. So, there is some of that goes on, but I digress. $858 per person on average. That works out to roughly a case. So you had 6,456 backers in aggregate across all the different pledge tiers. So if they're each getting roughly a case, I mean that's pretty widely spread out. It's a very international game. So it's the statistics showed, and I think that also shows in the Kickstarter page, the geographic distribution. So it's very international. There were pledges from all over the world. I think the largest percentage by a fairly wide margin was the U.S., but then you had all over Europe and Asia and different places were able to buy in, and they did buy in. So, very international game. These products will be all over the place. When you kind of look at the way Kickstarters work, there's always some genuine interest, people that just want to play the game, right, and get in from the beginning. There's interested in the project. And then there's others that are more speculators, right, and they buy in with the intent to try to flip into the hype of a first alpha release. So it'll be interesting. There was roughly, I think, in total 30,000 boxes or so printed. So it was like roughly 27,000 ordered and then a few thousand for margin for the company. For various things, promotions or, damage mitigation, I presume, things like that. So let's call it 30,000. It's pretty substantial for a Kickstarter. So there's going to be some percentage of that will be the speculators, and we'll flip it onto the secondary market. And then it'll be interesting to see how much genuine demand remains, and is there enough new genuine demand or new speculators and investors to absorb that's being flipped. And then the company has to kind of grapple with how much beta do you print and to meet the additional supply, right? And try to balance those dynamics and not try to flood the market with too much supply that's going to affect, the valuation of these things. That's something that's become relevant in games. It's interesting. I was on Ed Bear Jr.'s Patreon yesterday, and he was kind of surprised that this has become such like a speculative investment type dynamic in cards. That wasn't at all the case when he was painting back for Magic the Gathering some 25, 30 years ago. So it's kind of new for people that've been away from it for a while, coming back and are like, what, people speculate in a Kickstarter? That's weird, So that's part of why I want to do this video. A lot of people don't know who Rudy is. They don't know what transpired during the Kickstarter. So they're learning, So I'm trying to appeal to a broad market and try to educate people on what happened, right? So a few other data points here. There was some information from the company on pull rates and pack distribution. So in a pack, you're going to have 11 ordinaries, 3 exceptionals, 1 slot that will have either a unique or an elite card. So they said you have a 1 in 5 chance that the elite slot will be populated with a unique rarity card. So 1 in 5 packs will include a unique instead of an elite. And a unique is, the highest level of rarity in this game. All right. And then our double-sided foil/full art cards will be distributed 1 in 4 packs. So 1 in 4 packs for foils. And then on the back of the foils, you get the full art with no text boxes. Beautiful cards. That's going to be really exciting. All right. And then lastly, curio cards will be intermingled at some unknown distribution and pull rate. So that's the wild card. Curios are supposed to have some historical relevance, like to the early development of the game in some way, I guess is what the company has said, but we don't know like how that will materialize, whether it be sketch cards or, different text potentially. I mean, they haven't really said anything at all about that. So it's purely speculative, and it'll be fascinating to see because they are not publishing the set list in advance, nor do we know if they ever will. So those curios are going to be discovered through the pack opening experience, which will be, a lot of fun and very interesting to discover those. All right. So there was a pledge pack that came with each of the pledges. So the 6,500-ish people that pledge, they get a pledge pack, and in that you'll get the Death's Door foil card, the Guile Sirens alternate art, which is there's 2 versions of the artwork for Guile Sirens from Elvira Shakarova. One that is in the mainstream alpha booster boxes, and then this other alternate art that's in the promo pack or pledge pack. And then you have the Occult Ritual. That's the one, the iconic, awesome Frank Frazetta artwork. With the guy kind of summoning the flames, with his arms spread in that kind of classic pose. So that's a beautiful, really cool looking card. And there's an Occult Ritual from Lindsay Krumat's different version that she did a beautiful artwork herself of that'll be in the mainstream alpha set. All right, and then there's the hand sign alternate art sorcerer card. So that's one of the avatars, and Eric signed every single one of those. So 6,500 signatures. So that's pretty cool. And then in the box topper, there's like a transparent pack that'll sit right on top in the middle of the 3 rows of packs in each booster box. And there you'll get a alpha foil version of the Sorcerer, the Winter River by Matt Thames. That's an Atlas site card, and that's going to be in foil. So beautiful looking card. Critical Hit by Jeff Easley. Really cool artwork by Jeff. And then from Gadu Duaso, the Syrian Templar alternate art. So Gadu did 2 versions of Syrian Templar. One will be in the alpha box, and then the alternate art will be in this booster box topper pack. All right. So then the playmats. So when you look at that average spend, right, I said it was like $858 on average. And I said, a case is roughly $750. So in that spend, you had the opportunity to also add the binder, which was like a card binder, and then also playmats, right? So those were other additional add-on products. So, a lot of people took advantage of that and bought those. And then after the Kickstarter closed, they had the opportunity to buy more playmats, more binders, more pre-constructed decks, I believe was also offered. All right. So there was 7 playmats. You had the 2 really big 2-player playmats, the Dan Seagrave artwork on the right here, and then on the left, Mirror Realm, one of the most popular artworks by Liz Danforth. Then you had Screaming Skull by Melissa Benson, Ancient Dragon by Lindsay Krumat, The Old Growth Forest, which is by Ian Miller, and then Contested Realm, I guess, is what they ended up calling it. The cards were early on called Crusade and Jihad, and those were 2 different paintings done by Truett Parrish, right? And then they kind of paired beautifully, like these 2 factions like go into battle against each other. So that one looks really cool. And then the Great Wall by Elvira Polakowska, right? And that's pretty cool. Like when you look at this up close, you kind of realize there's like these demons or like these creatures coming up over the wall. So that looks really awesome when you see the card or a larger image of that one. All right, and then lastly, I wanted to show from the Innkeeper pledge, there were 24 of these champion promo cards. This is a Vincent Pompetti artwork, and presumably that is to support local game store promotions, maybe in-store tournament play and things like that. But that's kind of the summary, guys. I wanted to give that history, let you know some of the influences through the Kickstarter campaign that made it a success, or amplified the success, I should say, with the Rudy endorsement, the Frank Frazetta announcement. We kept hitting milestones like every couple of days. It was really exciting, especially after as you hit those $1 million marks, which is unbelievable that happened several times over. And they just kept introducing additional add-on premium products. And if you want to see those pledge pack cards and the booster box topper cards, you can just go to the Kickstarter page. That's all out there. There's images of those throughout the Kickstarter campaign page. All beautiful cards. There was a recent reveal from the printing factory of the booster box topper pack, and it shows that transparent pack. So you open it up, you see the Sorcerer alt art laying right on the front, or the foil version of the Sorcerer, I think it is. And then it's your first opening experience, and you can kind of see some of those cards, and a lot of those are in foil, so it's really exciting to see that video. I think I posted that on my YouTube page as well, and you could go to the Kickstarter announcements and find that too. All right, guys, so that's kind of it. If you have any questions about kind of the history of how this transpired, please drop that in the comments section or reach out to me. I'm happy to help answer any questions you might have. And stay tuned for a very exciting weekend. I'm filming this on February 24th, and there's some big time events going on tonight. And then tomorrow, I'm doing a live with Zach Bunn, the co-founder of Team Covenant, who is the distribution partner for this early pre-order exclusive offer for beta that's coming up and actually going on right now for Sorcery. All right, so we'll talk about that. Zach and I, we're going to talk about all things Sorcery. I'm really excited to have that discussion from a very knowledgeable gamer and retailer, get that retailer perspective on what they think of the game and how this compares to other games, and the prospects we think we can expect for it. All right, thanks guys as always for tuning in, and until next time, take care.